Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. So for all you Audie fans, assuming you're not getting enough Audie in the new intro, Audie is in my bedroom sleeping in front of my dresser. He had been in another spot in the room, hiding in a shadow. I stepped on him. He was not thrilled. But, you know, he's a little black cat. I'm blind. I have the windows wide open, so plenty of sunlight was coming in. And yeah, recipe for disaster. So he's not really happy with me now. And he found a spot that he's pretty sure he can sleep in unmolested for a while. Maybe he'll come out and visit us. I hope he will, but I'm not holding my breath. So we're going to take a very quick break because the new intro is much shorter than the old one, and we will be right back. So yesterday, when we left off, we had been discussing the pitfalls of online thrifting, and there are many. I simply covered the ones I have recently encountered, but there are many, many more. I thought what we would talk about today is how to maximize your chances of success thrifting online. And starting off with, this is just kind of basic common sense advice. Deal with sellers you can trust. Read reviews. Read the entire listing. Get all the information you can. If you have the opportunity to ask questions and you have concerns that were not addressed in the listing, ask those questions. I would say that for most of us, this is a viable option for thrifting. Going online means you're going to be able to access things, well, we've been talking about clothing, so I'm going to stick with that. Clothing from pretty much all over the world. Whereas while you thrift locally, you're able to get what is available in your area. If you live in New York City, you're probably going to get a wide variety of options. I live in a one-horse town, 2 stoplights. We've got 2 stoplights here. A very tiny little town in south central Pennsylvania. It had been a coal mining town some time ago, way back, but it was never an affluent area. Never. It's not as if this is a part of the country that had a great deal of prosperity in years back. No. So what I have available to me is not going to be high-end designer items in the consignment stores. What I have is, in general, going to be mid-range fashions. And I do have an advantage in that very often those mid-range fashions are older than the items you might see showing up in major metropolitan areas, New York, LA, Boston, Chicago. And the reason for that is because in major metropolitan areas where there's a cash flow, frankly, that's what it boils down to. Where there is cash flow, people will get rid of their old things, buy new things more frequently. In my area, people are more inclined to hold things longer, meaning I can go into a thrift store and I might find somebody's grandmother's closet clean out, which is fabulous if I'm interested in items from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. Great. So wherever you are, there are probably going to be some pluses, but there are also going to be some minuses. The internet has a way of leveling this out, and you will have an opportunity to find things that are hard to find to begin with, no matter where you are. If you like vintage fashion, and I do, who doesn't? If you like vintage fashion and you have your heart set on getting some nice fashions from the 1940s, and the 1940s were just a terrific time for fashion, going on the internet is going to open up opportunities for you in terms of finding what you are looking for. No doubt about it. Are you going to have to pay for those opportunities? Yeah, probably. That is the downside. I, however, have a fondness for 1980s fashions. By the way, if you like 40s fashions, consider 80s fashions. 40s revival was huge in the 80s, and there are plenty of items from the 1980s that, although they are not 1940s fashions, not really, they are similarly styled and can easily blend into a 1940s or even 1950s vintage wardrobe. So look at those options, because there are times when older styles got a resurgence. The 1960s and 70s were in love with the 1920s. So very often you can find very 20s looking items if you go over to 1960s or 1970s fashion. Just throwing that out there. In order to successfully buy online, you need to keep in mind that you have to bring a different approach to thrifting. Now, those of us who thrift and we like going through the old clothing shops, we know already that we can't walk in with preconceived notions. If you go into a thrift store and you are saying, I am not going to even look at anything unless it is a 1930s day dress, you're going to pass up an awful lot of really, really nice things. Thrifting in person in stores means being open to what is available, looking at what you have, not going in with a preconceived notion, because that's the joy of thrifting. You go into a store, you see, like, oh, 1950s, they had some fabulous nylon blouses. Now, I would not advocate nylon blouses for their comfort, because nylon doesn't breathe. It doesn't. This is just truly the height of better living through chemistry. But they have some styles that are just incredible. And these blouses were dirt cheap. And the styles, nylon blouses started to become fashionable in the 1920s. Cute styles, and I swear to you, I've seen the ads. These blouses were going for 29, 30 cents. In the 1950s, similar styles were going for $1 or $2. You can find them in thrift stores, and they are so precious. So, if you have a fondness for, say, dark academia, which I do, you go out, you get one of those cute little nylon blouses with the shirring and the ruffles and the lace. Oh yeah, very dark academia. And it will slide nicely into your wardrobe. But if you're not open to these opportunities, you're probably going to pass them by. And as I say, experienced thrifters know this. We don't go into stores saying, this is what I want and this is the only thing I'm looking for. Very often I will go into a store saying, oh, I'd really love to find a jacket, or I'd really love to find a cute sweater. But that doesn't mean I won't go over and take a look at skirts, at blouses, at trousers, at whatever they have available. Oh, especially scarves. Yum. When you are shopping online, it's very different, however. Shopping online does not mean going out and exploring the site, because the online shopping platforms have hundreds of thousands, possibly even millions of listings, and you just can't go through them all. If you decide you want to get vintage clothing, and previously eBay was the go-to place, any category you pull up, you will easily see 100,000 listings, easily. And that's just eBay, just one of them. So obviously you have to have a clear idea of what you're looking for, or you will be absolutely overwhelmed by your choices. Another thing you need, because you don't need this in a store. You can walk into a store if you're thrifting, and you might not even know what your dress size is. I don't know what my dress size is. I know what it used to be. I know what the dress size in the 1970s would be that conforms to my measurements today. But with the prevalence of vanity sizing, for all I know, I could walk into a store and find out I am now a size 2. And trust me, you can't even get my corpse into a size 2 dress. Not happening. It's nothing but vanity sizing. And with the proliferation of imports, particularly from Asia, there is no real standard sizing anymore. So what you need to do is you need to take your measurements. And that's where the Lesbian comes in. So, yeah, I know. I bet you thought that was a clickbait title. No, 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 no. It really is a title. It's legitimate. You need a lesbian. And here's why. If you're taking your measurements, everybody has one of these. It's a tape measure. And we have inches on one side and centimeters on the other. This is very important when you're shopping online. If you are, for example, an American and you're shopping here in the US, you need inches. If you are British and you are shopping in the UK, you need centimeters. If you are shopping for older items, you probably need inches too. Now, this is a very useful tool for measuring your body. No one would deny that. But there is a problem. You wrap this around your body, the minute you let it go, it's gone. And that's where this comes in. This is a lesbian. Now, this is a ruler that has a core. I don't know for sure what the core on this ruler is. I know traditionally it was soft lead. And you can bend this any way you want to, and it holds the shape. Now, this is the smaller of my two lesbians. And I keep them because I sew. And if you want to copy an armhole, you just wrap this around, take it off, and you can keep the shape of the armhole. You can keep the dimensions of the armhole. It is so convenient. And by the way, this has been called a lesbian for over 2,000 years. And that's that we know of. I think that we can document it's about 2,300 years. And the reason for that is the soft lead that was used to make these rulers. Originally, it was just a bar of soft lead. The soft lead came from the island of Lesbos. So yeah, this was a lesbian long before the term was used to mean women with sociology degrees and very sensible shoes. So yeah, get one. I think the last time I bought mine, I paid about $8 or $9 for it. It was not very expensive. So why do you need this in particular when you are thrifting? Well, if you want to buy trousers, there are a lot of measurements you're going to need. And we're going to start with trousers, but they're not. We're going to move on from there. If you're buying a pair of trousers, you are going to need to know the inseam. And that is the length of your leg from the crotch to wherever you want your pants to stop. For some people today, it's the floor. They're literally dragging on the floor these days. So you will need to measure from your crotch right down to the ground. If you're doing this by yourself, this can be tricky. A lesbian can help. This, by the way, is the smaller of the two I have. The other one I have is 3 feet, which is more than adequate for coming up with that measurement, and I can do it on my own. I do not need the help of some very, very, very close friend to hold a tape measure in place in my crotch. So, yeah, that's not something you just ask the neighbor boy across the street to come over and help you with. You're also going to need the rise. And the rise, and this is, starts in your crotch too. By the way, the center of your crotch, in case you're interested, is if you put on a pair of snug jeans, and this is how I would suggest you start. Just get a pair of snug jeans because they tend to fit very close to your lower torso. You take the crotch seam, you take the inseam, seam, and where they meet is the center of your crotch. So, you take your lesbian, and are we, yes, 0. Mine starts about 1 inch in from the end, and you hold this part, 0, at the center of your crotch, and then trace up your lower torso until you come to your natural waist, and make note of the measurements along the way. Your natural waist is about as high as you will want any pants. That's where a high-rise pair of pants should fit. You go below your natural waist to your belly button. That's, well, for me, that's where low-rise pants would fit. For other people, it might be a little lower. Keep in mind that the rise on your pants is variable. Those of us my age will remember this, because back in the 60s and 70s, when hip huggers were a thing, the rise on pants and skirts, by the way, was very, very low. It literally came down to just above our hips, high enough so the jeans or the trousers or the skirt did not fall off. So you wanted enough of that hip still there to keep the item of clothing in place so it didn't sort of shimmy down. And that was what we were looking at. And then later, the 1980s roll around, and suddenly we were forced to transition from hip huggers to mom jeans that were supposed to land on our natural waist. This is going to be different for everyone. Choose your natural waist yourself. Do not go into formulas, because you will find them on the internet. Your natural waist is approximately 1.5 to 2 inches above your navel. Oh no, mine's a good 3 inches above my navel because I am long-waisted. My height is all in my torso. I have the torso of a basketball player and the legs of a corgi. It's just weird, but it comes in handy sometimes. The fact is, I need high-rise trousers. And so the 80s rolled around and I was very happy. But I also need to know that rise, because for me, that rise is going to be a much larger measurement than it is for most people. So make notes when you are measuring the rise. You'll want to make a note of where your belly button is. You're going to want to make a note of perhaps 1 inch or 2 below that, so that you will have, a low rise measurement. You will want to go all the way up to your natural waist. And like I say, make notes, because for me, I have absolutely no idea what my rise is if I measure to my belly button or to that area an inch or two below, which would be low rise. The reason for that is I don't wear that sort of clothing anymore. I have no idea. I'm not going to go buying it, but I need to measure it and jot that information down. Why? Because who knows what I might want, what I might find in the future. I might want to get a dress, for example, that has a dropped waist. If I were to get a dress, I think that's the kind I would like. I rather like that style way back in the day. I will need to know where that waist is going to hit me. And without this measurement, I'm not going to have it. So, trousers, you need the inseam, you need the rise. You also need your waist measurement. And you need the measurement around your torso at the lower points. For example, if you're not looking for high rise, if you're looking for mid-rise, which would be around your navel, that's where you need to measure the circumference of your torso, and you need to write that down. You also need a hip measurement, and that is the widest part of your lower torso. Write that down, and then, armed with this little notebook full of information, you can interpret the information a seller will provide you on a pair of trousers. And if you have issues, let's say, for example, the difference between your waist measurement and your hip measurement is either not very large or very large. If you have like that Coke bottle figure, you need to be mindful of that. And you will need additional measurements because trousers may not fit you the way it would fit a person with a less extreme distance between the waist and the hips. And the opposite is true. If you are carrying a bit of weight in your belly and the measurement of your hips is not all that great compared to the measurement of your waist, you need to write that down too. So that's key. Now keep in mind, this is just one set of measurements. If you are looking for blouses, you need your bust, you need your back, shoulder to shoulder, you need your upper arms, you need your neck. Make sure you have all of this handy, because if you see something online and it looks cute, but the style suggests to you it might not have as much give in the back and you have a broad back, you're going to want to request measurements from the seller. So that's the start of it. Know your measurements. Next up, know what you want. If you are going online to shop for trousers, don't fall down that rabbit hole of looking at dresses or coats or sweaters. Don't. Stick with trousers, because you are going to be overwhelmed by the abundance of stuff, and you will get distracted from what you want. If you have fabric preferences, style preferences, make notes of that. The last time I went trouser shopping online, it was wool trousers. So that is what I shoved into the search engine, wool trousers. And the reason I used the word trousers is because for most people listing and selling items, trousers brings up images of high-rise, high-waisted, tapered legs. If I were looking for slacks, pants, I would throw that in instead. And then I would get the flares and the bell bottoms and the wide legs and all of the other stuff, if that's what I was looking for. But you need to know a few tricks to narrow your search so that you are not inundated with everything. And by the way, the last time I went online looking for trousers, I probably went through perhaps 5,000 or 6,000 listings, no exaggeration, just in the category of wool trousers. How many did I find that I was interested in? 3. That's it. So you will have to find ways to narrow down your searches. Sizing. Now, we did the measurements. So once you have your measurements, if the site you're using allows you to search by measurements, you're in business. What happens if it's sizes? Well, take your measurements, go online, and try to find a range of sizes that conform to your measurements. This is not going to be easy. I promise you, you are not going to just plug in your bust waist hips and get a size. You are going to get a whole bunch of sizes. You're going to get US sizes. You're going to get European sizes. You could get Italian sizes. And by the way, I think they are different. At least that's what my anecdotal experience would indicate. You will get a range of sizes. You can use that to narrow down your search. But still, you find something you like, go in and go after the specific measurements. That will help. Fabric. Do you know what fabric you're looking for? Do you care what fabric you're looking for? In my case, absolutely I care very much what fabric I'm looking for. Will I make compromises along the way if I have to? Of course, of course. If I need to go get something, I must have a pair of trousers. And I am looking for wool trousers. And I find a pair of trousers that is 70% wool and 30% polyester. Will I make that trade-off? Maybe. I might. At this point in my weight loss journey, yeah, probably, because I will probably, hopefully, not be the size I am indefinitely. I will, again, hopefully, continue to lose weight, so whatever I am buying now might either be donated or restyled, because the style of trousers I like is, you can resize those very easily. Remove the waistband and either widen the existing pleats or add a few extras, and bang, you've reduced the size of your garment. But am I willing to make compromises was the issue, and the fact is, of course I am. But I do want a certain look, a certain feel. You may want linen trousers. And by the way, summertime, great choice. Be mindful of the fact that when you throw linen into the search, you're not only going to get linen, but you are going to get linen blends, and you are going to get stuff that isn't actually linen. There is this new trend online, I'm just throwing this out for your information, of calling synthetic fabrics cotton linen. It's not true. They're not cotton, they're not linen. It is absolutely, when push comes to shove, false advertising, but you will see that. So always cross-check what is the item made of. Just because you put linen into the search engine does not mean the selections that come up are linen. So just keep that in mind. By the way, the same thing is true with silk, with well, I already mentioned wool, with cashmere. You have to check and make sure that you are not, shopping for wool and bringing up an item that is, say, 95% polyamide and 5% wool. I've seen that happen. But it comes up because wool is somewhere in the listing. Once you have determined the fabrics you would like, and that really is a good starting point, the style you would like, the sizes within that range, and like I said, prepare to be flexible, and you have your measurements. Then the next thing you're going to want to look at is condition. And in this case, you look at those pictures. Look at them very, very carefully. Get an overall view of the item. Does this look like a new item? Does it look like it's been well cared for? Does this look like it was pulled out of the back of somebody's closet? Does it look shabby and wrinkled? Does it look dirty or stained? Dirty can be fixed. You throw something in a washer, it's clean. But stained, that's not so easy. But shabby, unless you are really looking for this, and I know some people are actually attracted to clothing that has more of a lived-in look. And bless their hearts, they are salvaging things that would otherwise go into landfills. And I have seen clothing items on people that I know and thought, oh yeah, that looks like it's been around the block a couple of times, but it just enhances the charm of the item. If you want something that is in good, excellent, new, like new, barely used, whatever condition, take a close look at the pictures. Even if you want something that has a little more of that lived-in look, still take a look at the pictures, because your idea of lived-in may not include large moth holes. So read the listings carefully, check reviews, and if you go on eBay or Etsy, check the seller reviews. If you go on places like ThredUp, check the overall platform reviews. You want to make sure that what you're getting is what you think you are getting. Trying to think of what else needs to be covered. Oh, yes. Don't buy the first thing you see. I guess that's the best advice I could give anybody when they're shopping for anything. Look around. If you see something on one of these platforms that you like, just minimize that particular listing. Throw it into a saved list. If the platform doesn't offer the opportunity to throw it into your cart or save it through some other mechanism on their platform, just take your listing, copy the URL, and save that so you can go back to it later. And keep looking. When you have at least 2 or 3 items you can cross-check, then you can start making your buying decision. Now, this does not hold true if you're looking for a complete specialty item. If you are looking for a 1930s party dress in mauve, for example, and you find one, the fact of the matter is you're looking for something very, very specific. If it meets your criteria, snap it up, because you're not going to have a lot to choose from. But if in general you're just out thrifting to fill in a few gaps in your wardrobe, be picky. Don't feel obliged to buy the first thing you see. Don't be swayed by sales or discounts unless you are already prepared to buy a bunch of stuff for $20 a piece, bring it home, look at it, and donate the pieces you don't like, or give them away, or possibly even resell them, whatever. But you should remember that you are the buyer. You have the money, and that means you are in charge of the transaction. The seller may push you. Time's running out, things sell out fast. I see that on ThredUp all the time. It's like, so many things are selling out, you better buy now. No. Don't be sucked in by that. The fact of the matter is, if you found 3 or 4 items in your category today, you are going to find 3 or 4 items in your category tomorrow. And who knows, if you wait until next week, you might find something you like better. Don't give in to the high pressure tactics. So hopefully this will have given you some ideas on how to approach online buying. In general, read the reviews. Read the merchant, either the seller or the platform. Read their shipping and return policies. Are you going to have to pay a restocking fee? ThredUp charges you a restocking fee if you send things back. The restocking fee might in fact be more than you paid for the item. So in that case, if you want to buy something, just remember, once you get it, it might not be worth your time to send it back. It could cost you to send it back. So be prepared to give it away, donate it, or resell it. But you need that information going in so you can make the smart choices. All right, I'm going to have to stop here because we're getting way out of time, and you know me on the weekends. I can just drone on all day long. But I would like to get this, edited, formatted, posted. That would be nice, so at least you can get this. All right, we are going to look at a slideshow on our way out. As always, thank you for being with us, and have a terrific day.